Well, the big news this week was that the Liberal National Party coalition has announced that they will make nuclear power a core part of Australia's energy strategy moving into the next decade. Before we analyse this, we're going to do something no other news channel does in Australia. We're actually going to shut up and let you hear how the Leader of the Opposition, Peter Dutton, actually made the original announcement and explained it all on Wednesday.
The future of our country is incredibly important, and we need to have a plan for the economy, we need to have a plan for jobs, and we need to have a plan for cheaper electricity. The Prime Minister has no vision for our country because he can't manage the government day to day. We've done an enormous amount of work. I want to pay tribute to Ted O'Brien. We've looked at the international experience. We've looked at why Australians are paying the highest electricity prices in the world. We've looked at the expert advice from the regulator, who's now telling us that under Labor's renewables only policy, there is a greater likelihood of blackouts and brownouts. We know that the government has a renewables only policy which is just not fit for purpose. No other country in the world can keep the lights on 24/7 with the renewables only policy. We need to make sure that hospitals can stay on 24/7. We need to make sure that cold rooms can stay on 24/7. We need to make sure that our economy can function 24/7, and we can only do that with a strong baseload power.
Oh my God, what just happened? Somebody's turned up in Canberra who has some common sense. It's incredible. I can hardly believe my ears. Hallelujah.
Today we announce 7 locations that we have looked at in great detail over a long period of time that can host new nuclear sites, and that will be part of an energy mix, obviously with renewables and significant amounts of gas into the system, particularly in the interim period. It will mean that on those end-of-life coal-fired power station sites, we can utilise the existing distribution network. This is a really important point.
Yes, it is a really important point. The use of the existing old coal power station sites is the most logical approach. Why? Because that's where all the infrastructure already is. It's the most sensible and cost-effective way of doing it, so that we don't need to wreck the landscape and build more infrastructure for transmission lines. Poles and wires, as Peter Dutton calls it.
Labor has promised 28,000 kilometres of new poles and wires. There's no transparency about where that will go, and we've been very clear about the fact that we don't believe in that model. We want to utilise the existing assets that we've got, and the poles and wires that are used at the moment on the coal-fired power station sites can be utilised to distribute the energy generated from the latest generation nuclear reactors. We have the ability to do that in a way that renewables can't.
Bravo. Folks, we need to understand one thing. The renewables lobby pretend like they're the good guys, the white knights saving the planet, and the evil fossil fuel industry are the baddies, manipulating the market to their ends and influencing the politicians with money. No, the industry that has the most power in energy today and the most money is the renewables industry, specifically the wind and solar crowd. They've sought to demonise nuclear, and they've tried to get more and more and more government subsidies to support their preferred technology that in many cases is unproven and underdeveloped. I won't name names, but you don't have to dig too far to see which politicians and ex-politicians have been pushing that barrow, and which political parties. Start with the colour teal and keep moving towards the green end of the political spectrum. Nuclear power is now safe, it's efficient, it's proven, and it's absolutely perfect for a country like Australia to make itself energy independent and, most importantly, safe and secure.
We have a vision for our country to deliver cleaner electricity, cheaper electricity, and consistent electricity. This is a plan for our country which will underpin a century of economic growth and jobs for these communities.
The infrastructure already exists not only in these sites where the existing power stations are, but around these sites too, in the communities that support them. It's such a relief to see an adult approach to energy policy finally. Labor and the Greens were completely prepared to steamroll ahead on a wing and a prayer with their drive to wind and solar, hoping that maybe in the future the tech would catch up with the passion, and maybe we might be able to secure baseload power and keep the lights on and business and manufacturing moving, and Australian energy secure and safe. Well, I'm sorry, I don't like emotionally, ideologically driven Greens and lefties taking bets on our economic security and military security, thanks. So it's great to see the LNP finally finding some fortitude and getting in there with a serious plan. Because maybe just isn't good enough.
There's no sense pretending that our economy can operate without a stable energy system. And our plan today, which will include these 7 sites, is integral to the energy roadmap for our country into the future. The assets will be owned by the Commonwealth, a very important point.
Many of Peter Dutton's top team members spoke at the announcement, including the former Environment Minister Susan Ley, who's now the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party and the opposition spokesperson for industry and small business.
How can this Prime Minister promise a future made in Australia when he can't keep the lights on today? In order to have that future made in Australia, we have to have nuclear energy in the mix.
Susan Ley also makes a really important point about the real state of our country's manufacturing industries because of a lack of clarity on energy. You know, not knowing whether energy will be consistent and reliable and secure in the years ahead has really taken its toll on planning and investment for many businesses. And that has been terminal.
We have seen the number of manufacturers going to the wall triple since Labor came into government. Insolvencies in manufacturing and construction are at record highs, higher than they've been since the global financial crisis. This is not good enough.
The opposition spokesman for energy, Ted O'Brien, said Labor's management of energy has been appalling. They've put Australia's energy security at risk by putting all their eggs in one basket, renewables, and they're simply not delivering.
Renewables have stalled under Labor. Gas is being suffocated with a lack of supply. And we have 90% of Australia's 24/7 baseload power exiting the grid over the next decade, with no chance of a replacement being ready in time. Labor is turning off one system before having another one ready to go. Australia's running out of energy.
90% of Australia's baseload power exiting the grid over the next decade. That is astounding and grossly irresponsible when you don't have a replacement in place. A country that exports uranium to power other countries' nuclear power plants when we don't have any of our own, that is a luxury of silliness that we can no longer afford to indulge. I want to see a strong Australia and a secure Australia that is energy independent from countries like China. I want to see an Australia that has a thriving manufacturing sector and can build things without having to rely on imports from other countries for everything. The critics of this policy mainly have political motives, like the Labor Party, who just want to defend their own failure to get an energy plan in place that won't put us all at massive risk. Or they have business motives, like former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull of the company Turnbull Renewables, which obviously could do without the competition nuclear will bring. On a much more serious front, leading business figures have suggested that all this uncertainty makes it difficult for the big energy companies to know how to plan and invest. Well, this could all be solved by government butting out as much as possible and allowing the free market to play out. Let all these technologies compete. Let investors work out their own levels of risk that they're prepared to take. Nobody is entitled to government protection in the energy business any more than any other business. Nuclear will not work if it's not economic, same as wind and solar. Some government incentives might be needed to get things moving and get infrastructure in place, but that shouldn't involve a bias towards or any protectionism for any particular technology or special interest group. That is how the free market gets the best outcomes. Let them compete, get out of the way. Innovations may emerge that we haven't even thought of yet. And at least with that agnostic approach, the problem we will have will be that there will be too much electricity, not enough electricity. Given the utter fiasco that the NBN became, I think we've all learned our lesson about where former Prime Minister Turnbull's advice should go when it comes to massive infrastructure projects and policy in this country. Getting energy right is fundamental to getting our whole country right. And what Peter Dutton has done this week is demonstrate at least some of the leadership that we've so long lacked and which we so desperately need. If he keeps this up, he'll be Prime Minister with a huge majority by next May. To help Aussie independent news media cover more Aussie content, we need your direct support. Just click on that little $sign under the video frame that says thanks and slide the slider along to make a donation of your choice so that we can keep delivering Aussie content. The other side is an hour-long free weekly show right here on YouTube. The show this clip came from is actually right here. To make sure you never miss any of our content, please hit the subscribe button below or click here and hit the little bell too so you get notified. Thanks.